AI is not going to replace software engineers. So I think there's a huge upside to using these tools. So we are actually being asked now to take people's concepts that last mile to make things production ready. We're seeing more and more of that. It's an interesting thing to experience because if we had this conversation 6 months ago, I might have been a little bit more concerned about the future of software engineering for a business like mine. Now, actually, what I'm seeing is it's creating a tremendous amount of opportunity because people can rapidly prototype what they have in mind.
We're going through something absolutely historic.
Technologies across the board are growing exponentially.
It's a disruption that's going to completely redefine the way businesses compete.
In the next decade, we're going to lose 40% of today's Fortune 500 companies.
The exponential growth of computing is continuing.
AI is nowhere near its full potential.
Whether you like it or not, that the future cannot be stopped by anyone.
Welcome back to the Future Tech and Foresight podcast. I'm your AI host, Mark Verbenkoff's deepfake avatar, and this is episode number 233. Software development has radically evolved from the foundational days of manual hard coding to an ecosystem built on sophisticated frameworks and modular Lego blocks. This episode explores how generative AI and specialized developer agents are accelerating this evolution, drastically lowering barriers to entry for smaller enterprises and enabling the creation of bespoke tools. We dive into the profound operational shifts taking place, including how automation is turning tedious maintenance tasks like security patching and vulnerability remediation into background processes, effectively fundamentally altering agency billing models. However, moving past high-fidelity prototypes to a truly production-ready application reveals complex hurdles. We address the hidden legal and technical minefields of AI-assisted coding, particularly the massive intellectual property risks surrounding open-source licensing. If an AI unknowingly integrates code with strict copyleft dependencies, an enterprise could face devastating compliance issues that prevent their software from ever being sold commercially. We look at the future of tech talent and engineering education, highlighting why junior developers must remain grounded in fundamental architectural concepts rather than relying entirely on large language models. To succeed, leadership must build structured corporate environments that foster psychological safety, giving engineering teams the confidence to innovate with AI without fearing displacement. A little bit about today's guest. Matt Stripplehoff has curated an extensive portfolio in traditional and interactive media. Leading the development of web applications, mobile applications, e-commerce websites, and specialized interactive marketing programs, he shapes Red Hawk's technological landscape. In 2022, the circuit awarded Matt the Visionary Leader Award for his groundbreaking approach to software development. Recognized for reimagining the process, Matt's bold leadership catalyzes growth and success. His visionary business model bundles software development and technical support services for a fixed monthly fee, offering financial predictability and operational stability for their mid-market clientele. Matt earned a BFA in communication design from the Art Academy of Cincinnati in 1993.
Perfect. Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast today. I think what we're going to be talking about is a point that lots of people are kind of conflicted by. They're not sure about what's actually going to be happening with all of this, with all of these AI bots and potential for it to program. So I'm kind of looking forward to hearing your insights on this. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, there's certainly a lot to unpack on that topic.
Yeah, definitely. But before we dive into that, can you give us a little bit of a sense of what brought you into doing the work that you're doing? Was it AI first? Was it programming first? Was it, I don't know, sci-fi?
Yeah, actually for me it was graphic design.
Oh,
So
okay.
my degree is in fine arts. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts with an emphasis in communication design. So I've always been a creative type. And I'm going to age myself here a bit. And all the way back in 1994, very early internet and web application days, I started designing, producing websites before there were tools that made that easy. So you had to basically hard code everything. We didn't have what you see is what you get editors that designers have today. There was no such thing as WordPress, for example.
Right.
And-
Interesting.
But the challenge of doing the programming to create an experience through a browser was really compelling to me. And then that translated a little bit later, a few years later, to working for a software engineering firm, and we were designing and programming web applications. And this was in the late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
My career
Interesting.
progressed quite a bit since then. Obviously, Red Hawk's been in business for 18 years now, and I'm the co-founder, I should say, and CEO there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So maybe before then we dive into this AI, world. You've been doing this for a while. Like, how have things progressed until AI came around? Like, obviously there's WordPress, Elementor for websites and things, but I think that's also been quite a substantial change for just software development in general.
This certainly has. And every few years, there's sort of the new darling. Is it the new framework that open source frameworks and packages and plugins, things like that. So today, even before AI, software engineering really became an assembly. So we are not writing code with, in binary. We're basically putting these things together, these building blocks together to produce that desired user experience, connecting it to databases on the back end and integrating it with things like ERP and CRM platforms. It's interesting because the challenge of keeping up on the latest tech stacks has always been there, but now more so than ever because how rapidly the AI tools are changing the landscape.
Interesting. Can you maybe touch a little bit more on this this point that you brought up where you're kind of taking from places and putting it together? You're not hard coding in binaries, you said. So I am not a developer, so my knowledge on this is very limited. But I've heard of libraries in these different types of platforms where you're just able to, I guess, take a certain type of code and plug that into the program that you're doing, or something's already built. Has that gotten? I would assume that the libraries are just getting more and more and more robust or filled with other types of codes. So you just kind of plug and play to a certain extent and patch things together. Is that how things have been working?
Yeah. So think about it like Lego blocks. That's the way that we like to describe it. And there's more and more Lego blocks available today than ever before. The risk and challenge that I think non-technical folks may run into, especially with AI in the conversation, is that they may not really see the code if they're using tools like Base 44, Lovable. So the tools are making decisions about those Lego blocks. And there are certain licensing requirements, especially around those open source components and libraries and frameworks, those building blocks, as it were. And if you're building something that you intend to sell through a subscription, you have to be very, very careful about the decisions that AI is making on your behalf, because you may have licensing requirements in those open source building blocks that would require whatever you're building with those blocks to be open source as well. In other words, you can't sell it and make money on it. You have to make it available as an open source solution. So there's a lot of knowledge that as software engineers that we have that the novice does not. They won't. And if you don't know what questions to ask AI, it's not going to offer that information to you, because it's by nature, it's going to respond to your requests. And if you don't ask for that type of information, then you might be getting yourself into a bit of trouble. Hopefully that's helpful. Yeah.
This kind of seems to be, I think, a trend that we're going to be experiencing more and more and more, especially with like the younger generation that, like, I'm almost 40. When I went to school, every single word of an essay needed to be written by me, right? There was none of this, hey, give me this paragraph or anything like that. The closest I got to it was using Dragon Naturally Speaking, where I could think, speak, and it would the program would type it out for me, right? But what I'm noticing with some of the maybe more junior people that I've hired is they can ask, they know how to use ChatGPT perfectly. They're able to create, say, an ad, for instance, the script for an ad. But you read it and it's like, okay, this is okay, but it's missing something. And there's a disconnect between what needs to be said versus what ChatGPT in this case is giving you. It kind of sounds like the same sort of thing is going to happen or is happening with software development, where if you haven't actually gone in and done the coding itself from maybe not from binary, but from kind of a more core function, then you don't have that ability to decide or discern what's correct and what's not at a more nuanced level. Is that kind of what you're seeing and what you're saying?
Absolutely. It's a huge challenge in the industry as we're bringing on young talent. We just hired an individual that was interning with us the past 2 years, just graduated from the University of Cincinnati. And I was asking him about the curriculum that he went through, and are they allowing the use of AI, and how's that working? He said, "Oh, absolutely not."
Interesting.
If they detected or felt that we were using AI as part of our projects, we would instantly be given a 0 on that project. And I thought that was really interesting. So that's the upside there is he has a pretty good foundation for how software should be constructed. He doesn't have the professional experience yet. That's something we have to provide to him over time. However, now we are training him how to leverage AI in the software development lifecycle safely. But we do rely on our senior engineers to provide oversight and guidance. But yes, you're absolutely right that we are experiencing that in software engineering. It's the reason that humans are so important in the overall process. You need that expertise, that knowledge. Otherwise, AI is just going to generate what you're asking it to generate. But if it doesn't know, well, it just won't have the information you don't provide. So there's this gap.
So you were alluding to the fact that if you don't know that the AI is choosing non-open source code or Lego blocks, you could essentially create a tool that you're unable to sell. That seems like a pretty critical error if you're going to be building some software. Are there other things that you have come across or that you can kind of foresee or you've seen happen that are kind of critical to building software with the use of this kind of fancy new AI that we're all using?
Yeah, there's a number of challenges that come up quite frequently. Generally, the last mile is the most difficult in the journey of creating an application. A lot of people will use vibe coding AI tools to create something. They think that it's production ready, and they find out when they're trying to publish, they run into a lot of problems. So I think that's where you need expertise, software engineers to come into play to take that. I would call a lot of what's being vibe coded today as high fidelity prototypes.
Okay.
And it's a great way for subject matter experts to get their concepts into a format that everyone can understand, because it's human nature really. And when we see it, we know it, we can react to it, but until it's really there, if it's just a description, it could be a multi-page project plan detailing everything that it's going to do, but that still doesn't, it's not very real yet until you start to create something. So I think there's a huge upside to using these tools. But and I'll go back and clarify something that you mentioned there. There are open source Lego blocks, if you will, that still have a strong copyleft requirement. So they may be using open source building blocks, but some of those building blocks require you to make whatever you're building open source.
Right.
And I think that's the challenge. There's a nuance there. It's a very important one to understand. So we are actually being asked now to take people's concepts that last mile to make things production ready. We're seeing more and more of that. It's an interesting thing to experience, because if we had this conversation 6 months ago, I might have been a little bit more concerned about the future of software engineering for a business like mine. And now actually what I'm seeing is it's creating a tremendous amount of opportunity, because people can rapidly prototype what they have in mind. It expedites process, and it actually lowers the barrier to entry. So now as small businesses and mid-market companies can afford to create bespoke software solutions. But as they gain more experience with these tools, they begin to realize how important it is to have a partner as part of the process, because they'll start experiencing these roadblocks or these challenges. So it's been an interesting experience. And so it brings us back to the human in the loop and why you need people in the process. AI is not going to replace software engineers. It's going to change how software engineers work.
Right. Well, yeah, what you're saying is very similar to what I've been experiencing. I've got a very small, well, not very small, but small digital marketing company, right? So I've got a couple graphic designers, and they were terrified of, AI starting to generate images at the very beginning. Now, sometimes the AI is able to create an image ad, perfectly. But for the most part, it's here's an idea, and now it needs to be modified by a human so that it can actually be published on, Meta or something like that. So it kind of sounds like the same sort of thing is happening on your end, where you can have your clients come to you instead of just here's a rough text description. It's like, well, here's something that we're actually thinking about, and here's something that's tangible, and you can just please fix it because it's not working, kind of, right? Yeah. So maybe just to double click on the point that you're saying, it's lowering the barrier of entry. It's making maybe smaller companies develop software, whereas before they would have never even considered to develop software for their company. So it's making their companies a little bit more efficient, or have something, a product that they're able to launch, whereas before it would only be like medium or larger companies. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Developing, supporting, and maintaining custom software applications is not an inexpensive endeavor. So the first challenge is making sure that it's going to create some leverage in the business. That might be reducing the time from opportunity in the sales cycle to cash, so revenue generated. Oftentimes that's what we encourage our clients to think about when they're considering AI in general. But if they're considering investing in a custom software application, it really only makes good financial sense if it's going to move the needle with regard to the bottom line, as you would expect. Otherwise, it might be a clever idea, but by the time you get through the planning and estimating phase, you might find that the investment's not worth it. The juice isn't worth the squeeze.
Right.
That's certainly changing now, because the time and effort and cost, it has come down dramatically.
So I guess on that point, part of this hype cycle that we keep hearing about is that we're just at the start of all this, generative AI specifically, and that give it another 5 years, and what we think humans need to do now will be, done by AI. Do you think that there's any truth to that, or like you're diehard humans are going to be in the loop forever? Maybe not forever, but certainly over the next 5 to 10 years. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, this time, I would say last spring, we felt like the tooling wasn't very mature yet for our industry. We're like, oh gosh, this is all hype. This isn't really going to change things that dramatically, or if it is, it's going to take a while. And then by the time the fall rolled around, and these models are getting so much better and smarter and more capable, since October, we've developed a couple of our own products that we wouldn't have considered investing in the spring of last year. So I do think that it's just moving so fast. I think it is going to be, there's going to be even more dramatic impacts on every industry, not just software engineering. But just because you can doesn't mean you should. So again, I think that people still have to make decisions, strategic decisions about what to pursue, how to pursue it. There's also this cost that might slow things down. And by that, I'm referring to the tokenization and incremental costs, because the way that AI works is it's a utilization fee. It's not like you're buying software and paying a subscription for that software. You're paying based on actual utilization. So we can see it in our own business. Thousands of dollars a month is going toward our AI spend for software engineering. And it's not a cost that we had in the business even a year ago.
Right.
And so I think a lot of businesses will continue to leverage AI, but at some point there's going to be some equilibrium where I thought AI might replace, and of course this is hypothetical, let's say that it's going to replace half your workforce. Well, does that make good sense if it costs the same amount of money as that workforce?
Right.
And then you have hallucination risks, you have other types of risks that are introduced that maybe you didn't have when you had that workforce. So I think we will find some equilibrium once businesses start seeing what their AI costs actually are.
Right.
Right now, it's largely hidden from us because we don't know how to measure it. We don't know what the bill's going to look like until we get it. We know that it's with the developers of these AI solutions right now, it's a race for market share, and they're all losing money,
Yeah.
and that's going to change very soon.
Right. Yeah. The cost might be X, $5,000 a month today, and then next year it could be $10,000 or $15,000 very, very quickly. Yeah, totally understand. How about the quality of what it is putting out, right? So there's speed at which you can, as you said yourself, like you've developed a couple products yourself. You mentioned hallucinations a couple times. I think everybody experiences hallucinations, and this kind of goes back to what we were saying before, where if you have the what's a good term for this, like the in the mud kind of experience, like actually working at something rather than just asking it, you can see, okay, that's a hallucination. But if you've only been using AI, maybe you're not even aware that it's a hallucination. Um, with that in mind, are you seeing that the quality of what these AI bots are pumping out for you is the quality there?
Yes, but it's largely dependent on the models. And this is something I think that when your listeners, I'm sure there's all kinds of levels of experience using these types of tools. The novice is probably not aware that with some of the tools that are available, you can choose which large language model it's using. You can make those types of decisions. So for example, in software engineering, if we're using Claude Code, Opus is going to generate the highest quality results. However, it's also takes longer. It's not as fast as some of the other models that are available in Claude Code, and it's a lot more expensive. And so as humans will do and have always done, we learn through experience, and then we apply those learnings going forward. And so our engineering team will choose different models when using Claude Code based on the specific type of work they're doing. And as I'm using Claude, and not Claude Code specifically, but if I'm using Claude to do planning and research and things of that nature, I'll use a different model. I won't use Opus. I don't need that level of throughput. So quality is impacted based on the model you choose as well. But we are seeing very, very, very good quality coming out of the tools that we're using.
Very interesting. Yeah, and I guess that's theoretically that's just going to improve and increase over time.
Certainly.
Very, very interesting. Do you also think that I've been hearing this idea of changing business models rather than obviously SaaS is one of the most well-known models, but then there could also be service as a service, or maybe that's not the proper term, but business models are certainly going to shift if, say, businesses are able to generate whatever 80% of their own product, and you're just doing the last mile. Essential, but like, does your business model shift in the foreseeable future, or is it already shifting? Like, what do you think about that?
It's already shifting. In fact, we started transitioning before a lot of the AI development tools became as mature as they are, by providing software development as a managed service. So similar to managed service providers that are providing end user desktop support and managing your devices and upgrading operating systems, we'll develop, support, and maintain software under a subscription model.
Very interesting.
It's changing now even more in that one of the products that we have available now, that we have well over 100 software applications on this platform currently, is I call it washing the dishes for software engineering. Nobody likes to wash the dishes, right? That's why I like to use this analogy. Well, when you have software in a production environment that your team's using with frequency, or maybe you're selling it as a SaaS, those Lego blocks were fixed in time when you did your assembly to create that application. What's happening in reality, though, is that vulnerabilities are being discovered in those building blocks that are being published on websites like the National Institute of Science and Technology. Now they're federally funded. Their job is to find vulnerabilities in these building blocks and then report them. Well, if only the bad actors are paying attention to that, and you're not paying attention to that, well, then pretty soon that asset in your business, whatever you made that investment for a reason, it's moving the needle on the bottom line. Well, that asset will become a liability overnight unless somebody is routinely patching those security issues, basically updating those building blocks. So we have seen such good quality out of the tools that we're using that we developed our own software comp analysis product that on a schedule goes through and looks at everything, looks at all those building blocks, keeps a list of them, identifies where the vulnerabilities are. But engineers like to build new things. Washing the dishes is updating and patching the libraries and frameworks. So they don't have to do the dishes anymore. We have an agentic workflow that handles all of the updates on those building blocks. And we offer that as a subscription. It's just part of the overall package. And so that's been really interesting. And it also generates super detailed documentation from the source code repositories, which in the software engineering business, one of the biggest challenges that has been around since software engineering has been a thing is really good current living documentation. And then maintaining that documentation. So we actually have agents that do that for us now. We're not, software engineers don't have to write and maintain those documents. So these are really good outcomes for us and for our clients. And it is changing the way that we handle pricing. It's evolving the way that we package up our services. It's absolutely having an impact. And I think we actually have a lot of clients that have been moving from professional services, time and materials to subscription-based models. That's already sort of been a popular way to change and modify professional service businesses for the past probably 5 years or longer. There's a lot of trends in that space. AI is going to help them do that.
Right. Well, I do like this idea of washing the dishes being taken over by AI. This is something that even before generative AI, I was very aware of, technological unemployment versus, this other idea of, well, AI is going to be, or emerging tech in general is just going to be taking on the boring, monotonous, repetitive tasks and enabling humans to do the more sophisticated, frontal lobe type of work that we all want. Well, maybe not all, but most people want to be doing. So it's interesting to hear that you and your team are kind of experiencing that, or you've been implementing the agents in order to enable that to happen. Because I think if that continually happens, theoretically, it's better work for everybody.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is the maintaining a list of those building blocks and finding vulnerabilities as a matter of routine work is something we've done for a long time. It was just largely manual. But it's also human nature to preserve budget or to maybe prioritize other types of things that they think are more important for them. So the reason I'm sharing that with you is because you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, as they say.
Yep.
So historically, we would generate these reports and we would present them to our clients. But the ask was, may we use budget to remediate these vulnerabilities? And then the client would oftentimes choose to incur some moderate level of risk so they could prioritize a new feature instead of letting us do the dishes. So it's interesting for us because now we've got permission just to take care of all of those because the cost is predictable. It's very rapid work. And it's actually expanded, not reduced the services that we're able to provide to our customer simply because of the way that they would tend to deprioritize doing
Right. Well, that's so interesting. So at a larger kind of meta level, if this happens, with you, it's definitely happening with other companies. Does this mean that software as a whole is going to be a little bit more robust and secure and safe to use? Like, are you saying that, well, this gets into another rabbit hole that maybe we don't want to go down, but does this mean that like vulnerabilities are going to be taken care of at a higher level than before? So hacks is going to happen less on these types of software tools?
My cybersecurity friends would love to be in this conversation, Mark, and I will tell you that there are extreme points of view on that topic
Yeah.
on both ends of the spectrum. I think that mature software engineering firms and companies that have software engineering practices in-house are going to reduce the time of exposure. In other words, like what we're doing, what our service provides is from the time that a vulnerability is discovered to the time that it's remediated is going to be significantly reduced. So the time that you have some exposure in your business is going to be reduced, improving security posture.
Mm-hmm.
Now, having said that, I'll offer the other perspective. There are, because of these vibe coding tools like Lovable, all these tools that we're here, Base 44, et cetera, a lot of popular ones out there. There are bad actors who are creating Lego blocks and they're polluting the models and convinced by having enough information out there that the model thinks that this Lego block is a good fit for what it's building for you as you're just using natural language to communicate and say, hey, I want an app that does X, Y, and Z. That's called slop squatting.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting term.
Yeah.
So the risk is now, and this is happening, is that these tools will bring that Lego block into the tech stack and it's going to have a known vulnerability that they're already prepared to exploit. So you're going to see risks increasing in some areas, and the time of exposure you're reducing in some areas. So it's a lot of gray area there.
Yeah, and this is like I was hesitant to ask the question because it's a whole other rabbit hole, and I'm going to start to bring on a little bit more or more cybersecurity experts. I was hacked back in February, so like it's very top of mind, and maybe this is why I'm biased to go down that. No, but it does sound like it's the cat and mouse game is now elevated, right?
It is elevated. Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
No, super interesting. Maybe to make this, a slight shift, because I don't want to go down the cybersecurity rabbit hole here,
Sure.
to make it a little bit more, say, tangible, because I do know that there are, the students that listen to the podcast.
Okay.
What type of skills do you think that, junior or younger software developers should be focused on? Is it get really good at using AI? Is it don't use AI at all throughout your schooling, as your intern has done? What do you recommend?
I recommend not using AI during the schooling side of things for specific types of courses. So architecture, system architecture, design, database development, architecture, these types of projects. I do, however, think they need to explore these tools maybe separately from specific projects where they're actually doing the coding, they're doing the assembly. You need both. You need a good balance there. I think academia has a unique challenge because of the cost of the tools. If we're spending $10,000 a month for our software engineering team to use these tools to code, what can academia realistically absorb or handle as part of coursework? And or the students that are, what are they expected to do? Because you're not, historically, you and I we've been through, we have bachelor's degrees, and maybe you have more than that. Maybe you have an MBA, et cetera. We had to buy the books, we had to pay for the coursework, whatever that was, but it was not incremental utilization fees. So there's some really interesting challenges there for academia around that. And I think for the students as well.
Interesting.
I think for the time being, it's the most likely expectation is that the entry level position, wherever they go to work, they're going to have to provide direction, training, and support for how they are adopting and using AI in the software development life cycle. And every business should have acceptance use policies that define what tools are approved for their organization and how those tools should be used. Otherwise, people are just going to run rogue
Yes.
and use whatever they want to use.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's going to be more problems in that. Like, I think we've heard early on where some employees plug in sensitive client data or sensitive company data, and then it goes public, and then the company gets screwed. Yeah, there's lots and lots of issues around that. When it comes to like young or junior developers, I think there was also this fear during the real buzz of this new generative AI hype where, we might not need junior staff across all industries, to a level or to the same level that we did in the past, right? Because like I remember being an intern and all of my work was washing the dishes, both literally and figuratively in more professional jobs, right? So if AI is able to do those low level tasks, like how do you see junior developers like where do they get slotted in now?
Paired programming. So they should be working in partnership with senior engineers to learn the trade and really understand how to use these tools. But beyond that, why certain decisions are being made. It's the senior engineers that provide context to the AI tools to drive quality outcome. And so without that context being provided, you're going to get what you're going to get because by design, generative AI is going to generate things.
Right.
It's only an expert partner so long as you're providing the appropriate level of expertise. So it's interesting. I think that the junior devs coming on board in a company like Red Hawk really they need a lot of oversight. They need to be part of the team. They're not being asked to just work in a silo and then, show your work on Monday morning.
Right.
Yeah. So it's the only way they can really learn. And there is still a need. It's just, you're right. They're not doing the dishes anymore.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. Fascinating changes. And it's not just your industry. It's, I think it's everywhere. So maybe as one of the final questions here, it sounds like you are successfully adopting AI into your company. I am sure that some of your competitors are not so successful in adopting AI. Now, I obviously don't want you to give away all the secrets, but like, are there principles or practices that you think lead to successful AI adoption more than others?
Certainly. And I think this is probably something that listeners can take away just broader than software engineering.
Yeah.
Leadership within the organization has to provide a pathway for innovation and support for that innovation to occur. And they have to embrace a certain level of failure because that's the only way that innovation works. You don't learn from your successes, you learn from your failures. What went well, what didn't go well, because it's the elements that didn't go well is that's your opportunity for improvement. So I think that it has to start with leadership, and at Red Hawk, that's the way that we embraced it. We actually created an AI first SDLC initiative. We put specific structure around that initiative. We meet weekly to measure progress, what went well, what didn't go well. And then we have different business units within the organization that take away key learnings and then apply it within that area. So an example of that would be requirements gathering and definition, and what tools do we use for that? Well, it's a different set of tools than what the engineers are using to do their deep project planning and implementation with agents that assist with the code. And so we're all coming together in these weekly meetings and sharing what our experiences are. And then those various points where information is handed off from one business unit to another. And then we're trying to get from that opportunity all the way through to revenue and those quality deliverables for the client, it's impacting everything from quality assurance testing throughout the software development lifecycle. There are tools that we're using for that. The design on the front end of the project, the user experience and which tools are we using there. So we actually would and had selected different tools to explore, and then we compared the results of those tools, and then we narrowed the list. So right now we're actually in an AI constraint exercise. So we've gone from exploring several solutions for several parts of this workflow to now narrowing it down and then removing licenses and removing acceptance use policies for those that we've decided are not providing the quality outcomes that we want. But that was an investment because you're and you are taking on some risks. So for some of our customers, for example, when we started this AI first SDLC exploration, we had several customers that had opportunities that were ripe, like perfect fits for some of the things we wanted to explore at specific times. We actually did some fixed bid work. So it was value-based pricing to de-risk that for them and allow us to introduce some new tools to see what the results were going to be. And it's going to have an impact on time and revenue. We're successful because we went in knowing that we had to put a lot of structure around that exploration. And I think every business should be thinking that way. It's how do we want to handle innovation? What's our initiative going to look like? Is this going to be quarterly routine? Is it going to be a one-time thing until we lock down the tools we want to use? How are we going to take what we learn? And how is that going to impact things like our contract or our go-to-market strategy? There's a lot companies should all be exploring, but unless you've got a willingness from the leadership team to create a path for innovation within your organization, you're going to fail.
Right. One follow-up question on that. How was your staff? What was the mindset of this I don't know if it's top down, maybe it's top down push to adopt AI into your company. Maybe your industry is a little bit more receptive to using AI. I've worked with previous industries where, everybody's like, AI is going to take our job, tech's going to take our job, and they actually sabotage a lot of the attempts to implement AI. So I'm assuming that wasn't the case for you, but just,
It's a great question, Mark. And to be honest with you, it's less about an industry and it's more about people. And even in our business, we had and still do have some resistance amongst certain people within the organization that are coming around. And then we had just champions out of the gate that just could not wait to adopt these tools.
Right.
And the concerns of those who are slow to adopt or resistant are valid. They're absolutely valid. And so are the all the reasons that, the early adopters are excited. There's a lot of validity there as well. The truth ends up being somewhere in the middle, and you have to figure out how to de-risk some of the concerns that are being brought forward by those who are resistant, while also kind of bringing the excitement level down and kind of slowing things down a little bit for those early adopters who might have way too much trust too early in the AI tools. So by creating a culture and environment where those discussions can be very open and transparent, and I think this is a leadership hack, right? You have to provide psychological safety for those who are resistant. Otherwise, they may be doing their own thing and not really, oh yeah, sure, you go do that. I'm going to do things the way I've always done them over here. Because nobody's paying attention to me anyway. And nobody's going to listen to what I have to say, right? And they're just going to be grumpy about it or whatever. So, but if they've got the psychological safety to know that they can express their concerns, they're going to be heard. And it doesn't mean that it's all going to be unicorns and rainbows at the end of that innovation cycle, whatever that looks like. Some people might still be unhappy. And that's okay. So that's what it's been like for us. We have some folks who are slow to adopt and resistant, but as they're starting to see specific concerns addressed based on how we operate as a business, then they're a lot more willing to adopt and start using these tools, and they're actually getting excited. So for some of our folks, it took several cycles before they really embraced it.
Yep, that makes perfect sense. Well, so even if we're talking about some of the most advanced AI on the planet, it still all just comes down to people.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I don't know how to end a podcast better than that. So, Matt, thank you so much for coming on. We'll have your website and LinkedIn up on the show notes of the episode. Are there any other platforms or accounts or places where you would like people to reach out and follow what you guys are up to?
The website and LinkedIn are really the best ways to follow along. We do publish a newsletter monthly that has a lot of this type of information, both leadership and AI and things like that. That is available through our LinkedIn company page. That might be worth checking out if this is really a topic that they'd like to explore further.
Perfect. Well, we'll have that up as well. Matt, okay. Thank you so much for coming on. A pleasure.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening to this week's Future Tech and Foresight podcast. If you like what you've heard here, there are, of course, a number of ways that you can support the podcast. The best way would be to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or give a rating on Spotify, which you can find a step-by-step explanation for on the futuretechandforesight.com website. Alternatively, feel free to leave a comment either on the episode show notes or the YouTube channel where you can see video recordings of the interviews. And finally, if you are part of an organization that is aware of the disruptive and transformational impact that emerging and future technologies will bring and want to know more, please get in touch to hear about the strategic foresight services that we offer and how we can help future-proof your organization and take advantage of the phenomenal opportunities available to survive and thrive in the future.
A lot of future-shocked people and future-shocked institutions in our society are simply overwhelmed.
Once there is superintelligence, the fate of humanity may depend on what the superintelligence does.
Science fact is catching up to science fiction.
The first truly intelligent machine will be the last invention that humanity needs to make.
The only scarcity that will exist in the future is that which we decide to create ourselves as humans.
Within a 10-year design revolution, we can have all humanity living the highest standard of living anybody's ever known.
Progress is accelerating at an exponential pace, and it's going to reach a point where progress is so fast it's going to be a singularity.
We are probably one of the last generations of Homo sapiens.
Every single headline points to the birth pangs of a Type 1 civilization.